Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. I've been running for a few years now and have the privilege of meeting many incredible runners on my travels all across the country. This podcast is intended to share those amazing conversations.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
This week's guest is Dorothy Beal. Dorothy has run over 40 marathons and is a mom, business owner, writer, and creator of the I Have a Runner's Body movement and the Mileposts account on Instagram. In this episode, we talked a lot about social media and how Dorothy uses and has used it over the years, as she's been blogging for longer than most people have been using social media. As one of the most consistent voices out there in the running world, she puts out a lot of great information, and we had a fun conversation about her running and why she chooses to approach it in the way that she does. Dorothy loves to race marathons, often running several within the same training cycle. Having had run 41 at the time of this recording, she knows a thing or two about listening to her body versus following what other people are doing, which we dove into a bit more. We also talked a lot about mental health, as both of us have been very vocal about the benefits we've seen from therapy. This was another episode that was really just a fun conversation between two friends, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome back. I'm here in Boston with Dorothy Beal. Dorothy, thank you for flying to Boston just for this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So Dorothy is a marathoner, Instagram celebrity, an influencer, even though she,
doesn't like
the word. All of the above. Mom, expert in running, all that good stuff. So Dorothy, thanks so much for joining today.
Thanks. I'm excited to chat.
For sure. So you've been running for a while. You've done a handful of marathons at this point. What is it about running that keeps you coming back? Let's start with a heavy hitting question right from the gun.
That would be like pausing. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just love it. I love the way it makes me feel. I love the community. I love marathons, obviously. I think there's something about proving to yourself over and over that you can do something that you once thought impossible. I guess I just like how I feel after.
Nice. So you run 41 at this point. What was your first marathon?
I ran my first marathon in 2003, and it was Marine Corps Marathon, and it still is one of my favorites. I've done it 10 times, and I am signed up to do it again this fall.
That is exciting. One thing that you mentioned is sort of exploring boundaries and like reestablishing. A way I like to frame it is like reestablishing what's normal and pushing your limits and exploring that. How do you balance the desire to achieve new normal with like the love of the routine and following a routine so that you can push yourself on race day? Because you can't push yourself and explore these limits on a daily basis. So what's it like for you who loves to race so much but also needing to put the training in to get there? How do you sort of balance that, or how do you choose what you're racing?
Yeah,
is another way to look at it.
I guess I would say that like once I became a mom, there was no routine in my life, which I know sounds funny since so many people like try to establish routines with their kids, but it's not that I'm against routine. It's that, as soon as you find some sort of routine, something changes, whether that's like a life change or, they're getting older or they're doing different things. And so I guess over the past almost 13 years, I've just kind of learned to accept that like my routine is no routine, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But also I've kind of had to take that into, or that has kind of just spilled over into how I train. I've had to be a lot less, not get upset if I miss certain runs or don't quite stick to the same type of training schedule that I see other people doing. But on the plus side, I think that has allowed me to listen to my body a lot more and decide, hey, I don't feel great today. And I also have all this other life stuff that I need to do. So I'm not going to run. And to not feel bad about that. I know that, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's a rest day, or oh my gosh, I skipped a run. And I'm kind of just like, whatever, like I skipped a run. Or
But were you always that way?
No, I mean, I think there was a period of time where I was very obsessive over it, where it was like, have to get in the mileage that's on the plan, or have to get in the mileage and then some.
Yeah. Or if you miss it, you have to make it up.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, maybe part of it is just getting older. I don't know. Or just trying to establish what for me is a healthier relationship with running. But yeah, so I think because I train mostly listening to my body, like I know what needs to be done. I know, hey, I need to do a long run, or, I need to have an easy day following a hard day. There's kind of just like a general outline. It allows me to run more marathons than I probably should.
And you've done a handful of back-to-back marathons as well. And one thing that I thought was cool is you've talked a lot about, like, don't follow other people. It's like, do what makes you happy, do what makes your body continue to function, and figure out your own needs. Do you want to talk about like doing the back-to-backs earlier this year and maybe some of the feedback you got from that, and sort of how you just said, screw it, I'm doing what makes me feel good?
Yeah, I mean, so I essentially from the get-go have run back-to-back marathons. 1 month after running Marine Corps in 2003, I ran Philadelphia Marathon, and I actually, if I am remembering correctly, improved my time by about 6 minutes, which I think was kind of like the catalyst to be like, hey, this is fun. And like, you don't always necessarily have like a worse race the second time around. What I define as like a worse race or a better race has definitely changed. Way back then it was like only time, as the way I saw improvement. But yeah, I mean, of course there's always going to be people that judge what I do. I mean, the first time I was trying to go sub 4, I ran Chicago Marathon before I ran Marine Corps Marathon, and I ran a PR at Chicago, and friends and people that knew me were like, yeah, that's awesome, congrats, but like you totally blew your chances of going sub 4 at Marine Corps. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's cool, like, that's a risk I'm willing to take, but also like I know my body and I know what I'm capable of, and I think that I actually now am going to go sub 4. Like this race just gave me that confidence, gave me a little bit of fitness boost if I'm remembering correctly. I think they were 3 weeks apart. And yeah, I ran a 3:59, so I achieved my goal. And I think little things like that helped me realize that like everyone's different, and I'm not out here trying to tell people that they should do what I do. I'm also not saying that I'm anybody special, that I'm like superhuman and can do it and you can't. Like if it's something that somebody wants to do, I absolutely think I'm an average person and I do it. So you can probably do it too. But I think it really just comes down to listening to your body, and then also just having different expectations and different goals. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, you can't possibly be racing them. Like you're just using them as long runs. And like, I understand that sentiment also. But like when I enter into a training cycle and have multiple marathons back to back, when I am running that first race, I'm absolutely giving my all. I just know that I'm only 1/3 of the way through my race at the end of that race. So I pace myself according to that. So it's not that I'm jogging them and using them as long runs. You know, like I would look at it like when you do a relay race, you know, like you are absolutely giving your all on that day, taking into consideration what you still have left, you know, and how you want to feel on those other ones. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's so easy, especially in this day and age with so much social media, to get caught up in what other people are doing. And there's been periods of time where I definitely have gotten caught up in what other people are doing, and periods of time where I judged what other people are doing, but like, it doesn't matter what other people do, you know, like I don't need to judge them. I don't need to be concerned with their training, and I can look at it in a, oh, that's cool, or in a, oh, hey, I don't really feel like running, but you know, I just saw my friend ran on Strava, so maybe I'll get my butt out the door type of way. But I don't really need to dive into like how someone's training, you know? Yeah, like, because what works for one person is not going to work for another. And like, I think it's great to take inspiration and example from people, but like, do your own thing.
Yeah. So everyone always says, listen to your body.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, the most overused, I don't want to say overused, but everyone's saying it. But what does that mean for you? What is listening to your body?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times that people say listen to your body, or they say, oh, I was listening to my body. And that's something that you're just saying. But I think when you truly are listening to your body, you're being honest with yourself. And so I think that's part of why, you know, like last year I used a marathon as my last long run before I ran Big Sur. And I absolutely was jogging it as a long run. I wasn't racing it. I wasn't using it as, you know, the first leg on a relay type of thing. And I think that there's a difference when you can be honest with yourself and know that you're jogging it versus telling everybody else that you're jogging it, but really racing it. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I would say when it comes to listening to your body, just having the confidence to know what works for you. You know, I get a lot of people that will message me and be like, you know, how do you run easy on your easy days? Like, I just find it so embarrassing what my easy pace should be. And I'm like, well, why is it embarrassing? Like, I don't understand that. I get really excited when my easy runs are in the 9s.
Yes.
Like, I'm just like, yes, I did it, you know? And I'll be bummed out if, like, I finish my easy run and it says, like, 8:59. I'm like, dang it, I went too fast. You know, just own that. And what's there to be embarrassed about? Like, you know, anyone listening right now, 99.999% of those people do not know what my PRs are in any distance, you know? And so, like, am I any different of a person if you happen to know my PR or not know my PR? So I think listening to your body is just owning where you're at and being confident in that and not defining your self-worth just in the time on the clock or on your watch.
For sure. Sort of along the same lines, but also sort of opposing it. I've noticed a trend on Instagram of people owning their easy runs, and it's so cool. There's a handful of people that are posting, you know, the 9-minute runs and 10-minute runs, and like being mindful of the fact that like that's somebody's mile PR. Yeah, and it's like a tough balance between like wanting to share the hard workouts, wanting to share the easy runs, and being mindful that like your slow is somebody else's fast. But that being said, like every time I run easy in the 9s, I post it, and I love it. And it means you're beat, like you did something hard, and you deserve that rest or deserve that recovery.
I think it definitely is a hard balance in wanting to share your paces, but
and you're
also at the same time. Yeah, I mean, I love numbers. I love numbers. But I'm also the same person that like preaches like don't define your self-worth by numbers.
Right.
Even
But it's
though
a
I
cool
love
way
them.
to measure your own progress.
Yeah, I think that everyone has to find like what they feel is healthiest for them to share and not share. And I know I wrote an article once for Women's Running, and the article talked about that I had slowed down and that I was slower than I had been in the past. And I never said
those your words?
I never said slow. They were my words. I never said slow. I said slowed and slower. And the comments on that article on Facebook were just like ripping me a new one. Like this girl thinks that's slow, and I can't believe that. And I was like, I never said slow, but the experience made me more cognizant of the fact that like sometimes you can be very self-conscious of your pace. And I know that when I first started running, my first 10K, my top speed was 11-minute miles. And so if I had seen somebody that was posting something where their average was, 7:30, and they were like, yeah, I really slowed down, that might have had a negative impact on me. So I actually love now that Strava is around, that I'm an active user of that, because I mostly keep my paces to Strava. So like occasionally I'll post my paces on Instagram, but for the most part, I just share how many miles I ran, not what the paces are. And then I say, if you want to know the details, you're welcome to check it out on Strava. But like, if you're not that type of person, I just like want to create a space where everybody feels welcome and not judged. Because I'm not judging you, and I hope you're not judging me. So
definitely, let's dig into that more. I Run This Body. What's that all about?
Yeah, so I need to like come up with like a snappy way of describing it. It was born out of a quote that I used to repeat to myself on long runs to kind of help myself get through it. When I first started running, I would memorize quotes that I would say to myself as my long runs got longer.
And if you could remember them at the end, you weren't running hard
well,
enough.
So this is what happened, is that by the end, your brain my brain would become mush. Right. And I couldn't remember the whole quote. And so this one particular quote, by the end of my long run, became, I run this body. And I would just say that over and over to myself. And I would be like, no, you want to walk. And he'd be like, no, you don't. Like, I run this body, and I keep on doing it. So that's kind of where I was born out of. But yeah, it became my brand name, and I started the hashtag, and I need to look what it's at, but it's probably like right around 500,000 or something. But yeah, so it's just kind of like about owning who you are and making your mind run your body. I totally believe in the mind-body connection, and I think that there are a lot of things in life that I have been capable of doing that I probably, if somebody looked at it on paper, they would be like, nope, there's no way that girl can do that. But I think when you have a strong mind, you can quite literally run your body. So
definitely. I think it's interesting that so many people train their body, but they don't train their mind.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of reading around mental strength and mental training, and I've had some of my best races and best workouts because of that mind-body connection and being able to like tap into that. Like, you get to do this. This is a choice, choosing discomfort, that type of like not going into a workout expecting it to feel good, but rather expecting it to hurt. Like, once you make that shift, there's a massive like leap that you can take from a physical standpoint. Like, you're the same person, you're the same fitness level, but you're able to like unlock that next level. So what are some of the things that you've done over the years that have allowed you to make that leap, as a normal person, being able to do extraordinary things?
Yeah, well, I think one mindset shift was that, running doesn't owe me anything. Like, we show up at runs and we want to have like a perfect feeling day, and like that magic doesn't happen every single day. And I don't expect it to happen every single day. I expect that a lot of the runs I go on are not going to feel good. So I think kind of accepting that has helped out a lot. And then I guess another big mindset shift is like, I try my best not to complain about running anymore. Like,
if you don't want to run, don't run.
Yeah, and I go, like, so I started blogging in 2009, and I go back and read some of these blog posts, and it was like every single run was like this epic battle that like I needed to, and I had this go wrong and that go wrong, and I didn't have sleep,
and I dug into the demons and summoned strength from
and like I just read them and I'm just like, oh girl, like it really wasn't that complicated. Like, you had a bad run, who cares, you still ran. And that's not to like discount the fact that people have bad runs, but like I just don't do that anymore as a matter of practice. Like, yeah, I have bad runs, they happen, and I try not to complain about them too much, and occasionally it'll get to me, but like I just try to not get so emotional. I think that, and I don't know if this was how it was when I started, but I think sometimes people feel, or maybe I shouldn't say other people, I think I felt that I had to make everything dramatic in order to fit in. Like, I had to get to work and be like, ugh, my 7-miler sucked so bad. Instead of just being like, yeah, I ran some miles. It wasn't the greatest, but like, it was 7 miles, you know? I think I had to do that in order to fit in. And I still think there's the temptation sometimes, like, you know, I really wanted to run a BQ. I ran Tokyo this spring, and I thought I had it in the bag. Like, I was saying, like, oh, yeah, I hope I BQ. But I was, like, in my head, like, oh, this is a given. You know, like, the fitness is here. Even if everything goes wrong, like, I'm still going to run a BQ. And then I didn't. And I think that there's the temptation to, like, beat yourself up or like write this long Instagram caption and be like, you know, I trained so hard for so long, and instead of just being like, yeah, I missed my goal. And like, does that mean that I wasn't upset inside? Like, yeah, I was a little upset, but like I also have perspective, you know what I mean? Like, I ran a marathon in Tokyo. How amazing is that? You know, am I really going to be crying over 3 minutes? Like, it's just, there are bigger things in life to cry over than the 3 minutes. And that's not to discount being upset, because I've definitely cried a lot over a lot of things related to running. But like, you know, I just think that, I don't have to make a big deal about it. You know, I think the more that you make a big deal about it, it builds it up in your head. And then you enter into the next training cycle being like, oh, I missed my goal. And what was the point of all those, you know, like early mornings or late nights or squeezing in workouts, when it doesn't have to be that way. You can just have an attitude of gratitude that like you ran a marathon in Tokyo, or you ran a marathon period, or maybe marathons aren't your distance and you ran a 5K. Like, it's all awesome, you know?
So how do you achieve that balance of like self-acceptance while also like you're pretty public with your running, with your goals and where you're racing and things like that? Do you ever feel pressure to perform?
Yeah, I mean, definitely when I first started blogging and putting stuff on social media, I definitely felt a pressure. And I think also when I first started, I mean, I know that people get down on the internet and say that like it's not a nice place right now, but I think it is so much kinder and so much more welcoming than it ever was. Like, when I first started blogging, I don't think a lot of people were nice. Like, I think I got a lot of mean and judgmental comments that were either emailed to me or said to me or left, and that kind of like created this feeling that I had to perform. And I don't know, I guess it's taken a lot of self-work, and I've definitely gone to a lot of therapy. Yeah, I mean, I want to accept myself. Like, life is too short to be worried about living up to somebody else's expectations. And, you know, someone the other day got pissed at me about something, and I wanted to get upset about it. I wanted to explain myself to them and be like, well, that's not the case, and blah, blah. And I was like, you know what, Dorothy? You are actually doing something right, because you don't want everyone to like you. Like, if everybody in this world liked you, you would stand for nothing.
Right,
and when you stand for something, there are going to be people that don't like you, that judge you, that criticize choices or actions that you make. And like, that is okay.
Yeah,
that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get there, but the more I see other men and women doing that, the easier it is for me. And then I realized that, like, if those people helped me and don't even know it, that I'm probably helping people too. And it encourages me to kind of just like live it's so cliche, but like
best life.
authentic and true self, life is too short. I don't want to live it for somebody else.
Totally. I can't remember if I've had this conversation with you or if it was with Amelia Boone, but it's like, I remember saying like 10% of people will disagree with you or dislike you no matter what. And so the bigger your audience gets, the bigger that small piece of the pie becomes.
Yeah.
It's like you said, you can't satisfy everyone. You don't want to satisfy everyone. And it's just a shame that like people are mad at someone who's putting out good stuff.
Yeah.
Like Amelia, publicized her eating disorder that she's been dealing with over the last, since she was in high school. And people are bashing her on that. It's like, I think you're coming at it from a very like wrong standpoint. Like, somebody has opened up and you are trying to bring them down. They're helping other people and you're trying to hurt them. Like, but the point is, like, those people are going to exist no matter what. And if those people don't exist, then you're not pushing the boundaries enough in a way that is, I don't want to say meaningful, but like, you're not stirring the pot. And like, I enjoy stirring the pot. And like,
I don't on purpose stir the pot, just for the record.
I don't mean I enjoy pissing people off ruffling feathers, but like, I enjoy putting myself out there and being confident enough in what I'm saying that like people are going to disagree with me. I've been, open about rest and recovery and people that are over racing and, doing things that are damaging, I guess.
Yeah.
And like, I've gotten feedback like, stay in your lane, like, you're not an expert, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think for you, it's also like you come at it from a different angle because it is also like your line of work.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you come at it from that like critical eye. I stay in your lane is like such an annoying phrase to me because I'm just like, what is my lane? And maybe I want to switch lanes.
Right, yeah.
Maybe I like being
my blinkers on, I'm
like
turning
being
left.
in the middle of the lane. Like,
Well, it's fast lane. I like the fast lane.
Like, I'm not a fan of that phrase, even though sometimes I have to like always give a disclaimer because I'm going to say like, I'm not a fan of that phrase. Then someone's going to like dig up something.
You're going to say it next week. Yeah.
Someone digs up something
tweet from 2012.
It's going to be like, she said, stay in your lane. And I'm going to be like, oh shoot. But yeah, I think that, not everyone, sorry. I have such a bad habit of saying that everyone feels this way, but I think that, we all want to live in a happier, more compassionate world, and that like starts with us. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I definitely sometimes can be like quick to judge something or someone, and then I have to like rein myself back in and be like, well, actually, why did you care? And like, does it matter? And no, also, you don't know that person's full life and full story. I know, like, from my own experience, like a lot of people who have been following me for, 10 plus years can feel like they know me. And while I love that people feel a connection to me, I only share part of my life,
right.
And so it can be like, well, how did da-da-da-da-da? And I'm just like, Well, actually, all this other stuff was happening at that time that you had no idea about.
Yeah, so how do we balance the fact that like we're choosing what we curate on Instagram with the fact that like life is hard, and like I know you're going through some stuff right now, and you may not be sharing that publicly, but your runs look awesome and your travels look fun, and like how do we balance the like being, like you said, being your authentic self, but having limits?
Yeah, I that's something I think about a lot, because I mean there is so much more to me than just running. But like if you followed my Instagram account, you would think
it's a running account.
It's like it's a running account, but you'd also think that like my every waking moment was like I thought about running. And you know, I'll have people in my life that'll come up to me and like start talking to me about running, and I'll have to be like, you know, I don't.
We can talk about other things.
We can talk about other stuff. Like, I don't actually care, you know? Like, I mean, I do care, but at the same time, like, I'm just like, that's just one part of my life, and I don't need you to be interested in that if that's not your thing. I guess I guess maybe I would challenge the word curate, because I think that it's not so much curating, it's just knowing that there are things that you can't share or don't share out of like respect to other people in your life, you know? Like I definitely hang out with friends and do other stuff, but I don't post a lot of that on my Instagram account, and that's kind of like out of respect for my friends, you know, that I'm like, I don't need to like plaster
have your
them.
phone out all the time.
I don't need to like plaster their lives on the internet and stuff. So I think it is hard. I try to just say, you know, like last week I had what looks like on the outside like a great week of running, and I got a lot of messages like, it's so awesome, your running is going so well, and like I will take the compliment and I'll say thank you, but then I acknowledge like I'm actually having a really hard time right now, and like that running was like my escape. So like, while it looks like great, you ran like 56 miles last week and you're kicking butt, and
that was the high.
I'm not actually kicking butt. Like that was the high, and like the lows are pretty dang low right now, you know?
And isn't it wild how that works? So like this spring I went through some of the hardest personal times in my life. With relationships and family and getting out of relationships and things like that. And my running was better than it has ever been I haven't been running for that long, but like it was the best it's ever been. And I was going into workouts and long runs like, get uncomfortable. This is something you can control. You have all the power in this situation. And be a fucking animal. Like do what you want to do in this moment. And like it was the most therapeutic, like,
I know, it's good and it's bad, and I have seen both the good side and the bad side of it. I tell people that I try not to run on rage anymore. But I have friends that like literally one time during a relay, my friend was like, get angry. Like before I started running, they were like, get angry right now. And like started just like recounting things that had pissed me off in the past couple of days to kind of play it up. Because they knew how well I ran when I was angry, because it was like, you just get out there and you just like, you know.
But
and
you can harness
great.
that like a couple of times.
It's great. But then at the same time, I think it can leave you feeling so depleted. And so I try as much as possible not to run on rage. But but I think in exactly what you're saying, like when you're going through a tough time, running can be something that you can control when there are other variables in your life that are very much out of your control, you know?
Yeah, and it's tough because, like, what if I got injured that week? Like, like in March? Like, then what?
I know. Well, that's why you got to listen to your body. Even when you're sad or mad or running on rage, you still have to listen to your body. Yeah, I think also going back to the listening to your body, I think the more that you actually do tap into yourself and listen, the more you are able to listen to what your body is saying, you know, instead of just ignoring signs and pushing through things that maybe you shouldn't push through.
Yeah, and I think that's a lesson that you learn over time. Peter Bromka put out an article recently about, I don't want to call it the aging runner, but basically the aging runner.
Which is also crazy because he just turned 38 and I'm 37 and I was like, damn, I'm like at that age where we like start thinking of ourselves as old.
but the point that he was making in the article is like he's in this sweet spot where he's faster than he's ever been and he's smarter than he's ever been. And so it's this like very precious time where like you have the intelligence and the body to harness that intelligence into peak training. Yeah. And it's like this window that's just open for like a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, I think that he probably doesn't give himself as much credit as he should, in that most people at the age of 38 would think that they are already past the point. You know what I mean? And I think that when I tell people that I'm 37 and have 3 kids and that I still believe that my best years in running are ahead of me, I think some people give me this side eye. They're like, yeah, okay, lady. You know? When I'm like, no,
it's true.
I actually believe it. And like, maybe if you were analyzing the numbers right now, you might not see it, but I feel it and deeply know it.
And the way you talk about running is like, I think the biggest indicator of longevity and success. It's like, it's not a chore. It's something you love. And
even though it can feel like a chore
in the moment,
sometimes,
at times it can feel like a chore. Right.
Yeah.
I think one of the best indicators of like how are you doing right now as a runner is like your temperament about running. Yeah. Like, are you excited to get out on a daily basis? Maybe not every day.
Yeah.
Does the thought of a race make you excited, or are you, neutral about it?
Yeah. So I used to get so nervous before races. Like, I would feel sick to my stomach about, oh my gosh, how is this going to go? And I mean, I still get a little nervous before a marathon because I'm like, 26.2 miles, like a long way to go. But like, I don't really get nervous because I'm just like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to give it my all, and like, it's going to go how it's meant to go, So I feel so much more fulfilled than I ever have as it relates to running. It's just kind of like this zen thing.
What big goals do you still have?
Then I'm like, So I hate putting time goals when people are like, what are your goals? But I'd still love to get back to like where I was before. My fastest marathon is 3:11, and I honestly would be very happy if my marathon time never changed because I really like 3:11. Like, I like the number 11.
Oh, you're a numbers person?
And so like if my marathon time never changes, like that actually is cool. But like the distances beneath the marathon, like my fastest 10 miler is a 106, and like I just love to hit 105. But
any 818s in there?
No, yeah. If I could run like an 18 5K, no, that would be in my dreams. And all of the numbers are like kind of arbitrary in that I just want to hit them because I like the way the numbers like look or sound. Like, I know that's not something that like, oh, well, that girl's not serious. Like, she likes 11 on the end of her marathon. But I mean, like, I think you should just find what makes you happy. And like, I'm smiling so big right now, like thinking about how silly that is, but like, I love it. So yeah, but I mean, my long-term goal is always to just like, I want to be that 70-year-old woman at a marathon.
Yeah.
And so like that is also in my mind when I train. Like I'm like, I could go deep into like the mental hurt locker, and I could only run one marathon in a training cycle, and like I really could do more speed, and I could change my diet and do all these things, but like I don't know that would allow me to be running for the rest of my life. I think that I have the propensity to take things too far and to push too hard. And so with the goal of wanting to be that gray-haired grandma at a marathon.
That's amazing. You're going to have to change your handle.
I kind of have to rein myself back in. Yeah. What would my name be? No.
A gray-haired grandma. That's got a nice ring to it.
I mean, at some point, I'll delete all my social media, but maybe when I'm a grandma, I'll bring it back. I don't know.
What scares you?
Wasting my life. Yeah, for sure. I think that for a really long time, I thought not only was I ordinary, but that there was literally nothing special about me, and that I didn't have anything to contribute to the world or to anybody else. And I think running has given me the confidence to know that everyone has something special inside of them, and everyone has something that they can contribute, and that I do have something to contribute. I think that I'm especially cognizant of that now that I have a platform, and I want to be able to use that platform to help others and make a change. So I guess it's just figuring out best how to do that in a way that focuses more on others and less on myself, which sounds so weird because in order to grow a platform, you have to be good at marketing yourself. But yeah, I think that's my biggest fear, is just wasting my life and looking back and being like, dang, like, why'd you not do that? So I try to rally a lot, because like I was saying before when I was telling you I wanted to take a nap, I can sometimes get sucked into like just
saying yes.
No, into saying no, just being like, I'm just going to stay in my hotel, or, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. And I have to make a conscious effort to like rally to, and I think that also ties in, like I suffered from social anxiety when I was younger. And so I think some of that is tied into that still, but I rally a lot because I don't want to waste my time here. You never know how much you're going to get.
Yeah, it could get hit by a bus tomorrow. You never know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about therapy.
Yes.
It's something we've talked about a lot. When did you start going to therapy? And do you think it's for everyone? Do you think everyone should see a therapist?
Yeah, gosh, I don't even know when I started going to therapy. I know that when I was in college and really low and really depressed, there was a like campus counselor that I went to talk to. And that was beneficial, but I don't think I went enough. And, I'm 99% sure none of that was covered by insurance, which I think is why I didn't go enough. I think I went like a couple of times, and then I was like, all right, well,
this is expensive.
This is really expensive, and, I need to be able to buy beer on the weekends. But now that I'm older and wiser and more mature, yeah, I don't know when I started back up again. But I started back up and consistently went every week for a period of time. And it was so beneficial. And I go through waves. Like I haven't been to therapy recently, probably in the last 6-7 months. But I think that I love knowing that it's always there. And if I need to go back to it, I can. And therapy for me has given me so many tools of ways to help myself. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think everybody could benefit from therapy. And I think that therapy is one of those things that people turn to in times of crisis. And I think more people should turn to it when everything's going great.
Yeah.
Because when you're in crisis mode, you need to already have the tools to help get you out of there. But yeah, I think, when people like you and others share, like, therapy's cool, Like, what's the problem? It's like a non-judgmental friend that, like, you can say anything to, you know? And it's not like with a friend, if you're sharing, like, a thought where you're like, oh, don't judge me for this. Like, you don't have to say that to a therapist. You're like, I have this really weird thought and this really weird feeling, and I'm going to tell it to you. And then you tell it, and they're like, okay.
And then they help you unpack
it. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's great. And I think that there shouldn't be any stigmas around it. And I do think it's going in that direction, though.
Yeah, for sure.
That people aren't, I mean, I don't know your experience, but, like, no one has said to me, oh, that's so weird to go to therapy. Yeah.
So when I tweeted about it for the first time, when I started going to therapy again consistently in last August, so it's almost been a year now.
Yeah.
I went as a kid from, like, third grade till high school.
Yeah.
Going through, like, a lot of depression as a little kid. When I tweeted that I was going back to therapy, like, I got, like, 30 messages from people saying, oh, me too. I've been seeing a therapist. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But, like, I didn't know this about any of these people.
Yes. I love it when people share stuff because I think it's easy to suffer in silence,
And everyone's struggling with something.
Everyone is struggling with something. Everyone. And I think that's a good thing to, like, keep in mind when you're having interactions with anyone, is just that you just don't know what kind of, like, personal stuff they're marching through.
Yep.
Yeah, and for me, I like sharing stuff on Instagram. Like, I like saying, I like being able to say, like, hey, this is what I'm going through, and I'm going to therapy. This is gonna sound...
It's relatable.
Yeah, well, but it's gonna sound so weird, but, like, it's easier for me to share my thoughts and feelings with 70,000 people that I don't know than it is sometimes with people that are closest to me. I'll have friends read something on my Instagram and they'll be like, what? I had no idea you were feeling that way. And I'll be like, yeah, I am. And then it's, like, easier for me to talk about it with them. But there's just something about bringing it up. Like, you don't go out to lunch with your friend and you're not like, hey, so I've been really depressed for, like, 3 months, like, not showering, but if something you just put out there, then for me personally, it's been easier having people come to me and be like, whoa, I saw you're struggling.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here if you need me.
But I think part of that is, like, being, I don't want to say authentic with friends, but, like, being more than surface level. It's like, it's uncomfortable, but it's fun. And when it gets, like, I tweeted the other day, like, you need friends who you don't answer. It's, I'm good.
Yes.
Like, those are the conversations that are amazing. And when you ask somebody, like, how are you doing? And you're not expecting, like, I'm doing awesome as the reply. Like, that's where shit happens. Yeah.
It's hard, though, because in order to, like, you also have to find those people. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you and I are that type of friend where you're like, hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, actually, I'm doing awful. Yeah. And here's why I'm doing awful. But not everyone can handle that. Right. Because it is an uncomfortable thing for some people. So for me, like, once I can see that somebody will be accepting of me if I give them the full truth, it's easier for me. But it is hard with some people if they ask you how you are and you tell them how you are.
Yeah,
and
some people are not expecting that, nor do they want it.
Yeah, and then they just don't respond for like a month, and you're like, okay, like, noted.
Oops,
like,
went too far.
Yeah. And so for me, then I like dwell on that, and I'm like, did I say the wrong thing? Should I not have said that? And so I think that is part of what makes it easier to share on social media sometimes than with other people, if that makes sense. Yes. That was like the longest and most convoluted answer.
I think that's a good place to wrap up. Dorothy, thanks so much for chatting on the podcast. And I know we took this in a bit of a different direction than it normally goes, but I think it was a good one. I think people will enjoy and appreciate it. Where can we find you on social media? I am
Mileposts on just about everything. So Mileposts.
Like,
add that S at the end.
Like the mile markers on the street or trails or the restaurant on Route 3 heading to the Cape.
You're going to start noticing it everywhere.
Exactly. It's I laugh every time because it's almost at mile marker 26.2, which is just, it's meant to be. So on that note,
thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much. That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.